Good evening. My name is Laura Gentry, and welcome to Alternative Venues for Jazz Talk. I want to give a big thanks to Gail Boyd for having me on this forum today. I'm a jazz promoter in Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been promoting jazz for 21 years here in Cincinnati. And I got started because I wanted to see something that hadn't been done in my city. I wanted to bring artists to my city that we didn't get a chance to see. And that's kind of how I started. But I also wanted to be able to promote things that were not just shows, but also events. And one of my best friends is saxophonist Tim Warfield. And he always said, when you're doing something, make it an event, make it memorable for people who attend. Because when we spend our money for entertainment, we want to be able to have a full experience. And so I always keep that in mind when I'm promoting an event. I was lucky to have two parents that were big jazz lovers, especially my father, and they loved to dance. So they danced a lot to jazz music, and my father was a big jazz head, and he loved organ jazz. I tell people I heard Charles Erlin so much when I was growing up that, I thought I would get tired of it, but I didn't. And I was involved in the arts a great deal in my hometown, which is Middletown, Ohio. And I started promoting when I was about 33 years old. I'm also an accountant, and that's what I graduated with my degree from Xavier University. And I've been an accountant for 10 years, and I was in a crossroads about what I wanted to do with my life. And I had always been involved in the arts. And I started going out and listening to jazz around the city of Cincinnati. I got involved with another promoter and I was assisting him. And then a very good friend of mine who is a musician here in Cincinnati, trumpeter Mike Wade, he said to me, Laura, you can do this. You don't need to help someone else. You can do this on your own. And I started thinking, well, I'm just an accountant who loves jazz. I don't really know that. But I kind of stepped out on what I knew was my best skill set, which was project management. And that's kind of what a lot of things are, is project management. And I knew I was good at project management. So I stepped out on my own and promoted my first show in 1999 as a celebration of my birthday, and several other people in Cincinnati that I knew. We were all jazz lovers and we're all Aquarians. And so my very first show was called the Aquarius Jazz Jam in February of 1999. It was all local artists. Some of those artists were also Aquarians. And we did a huge event with cake and balloons and prizes, and it was really great. And someone came up to me a couple of weeks later and said, "Are you going to do that again?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I am." I started branching out, looking at who are some people that I would like to bring to Cincinnati that don't normally come here. One of the first shows that I did with a national act was saxophonist Javon Jackson with Dr. Lonnie Smith and drummer Idris Muhammad and David Stryker on guitar. I did a weekend with them in Cincinnati, and that was kind of my first big event with musicians on that level. And Javon gave me some really good advice about being a woman promoter in the Midwest and being African American. And he said, once you get through something really huge, just like what you did this weekend, do you want to get up and do it again? Are you still motivated? Are you still passionate about it? Do you still feel fulfilled? If that's what you feel, then keep on doing it. And he also gave me a lot of advice about the good and the bad and the ugly in promoting. And unfortunately, all the bad stuff that he told me came true. But despite all of the bad stuff, I still wanted to get up and promote jazz in my hometown. And then I started branching out and doing other things, being involved with educational outreach, being involved with nonprofits, and then producing concert events and festivals and producing booking for small venues, producing series. I got involved in that as time went on. I also have done artist management, which I did for a short period of time. For me personally, I don't want to manage artists. That was something that I did not, I felt like that was taken away from my passion of wanting to do jazz. So I don't do artist management anymore. And I used to do booking. I don't do that anymore. Um, I wanted to be able to present, and I also wanted to be able to do things that were going to expand jazz education. I belong to, I sit on the board rather, of 5 nonprofit entities here in Cincinnati. And one of them I'm the president of, Jazz Alive. And our mission is to preserve and promote the unique American art form that is jazz and its practitioners. And we have 6 initiatives that we use to support our mission. One of them is called the In School Jazz Program, which is our educational outreach. And our performance initiatives is performances around Greater Cincinnati. And we also, if we're not mounting a performance, if Jazz Alive doesn't mount a performance, sometimes we assist financially with concert series or performances that are taking place. We also have a senior services program where we do entertainment at nursing homes and retirement centers. We have a radio program in Cincinnati called Jazz Alive on the Wind at WMKV 89.3 FM. We are a co-presenter of a concert series here in Cincinnati called It's Commonly Jazz. It's Commonly Jazz is the longest free summer concert jazz series in Cincinnati, and this year was its 35th year. We are also the parent organization for an initiative called We Create Jazz, which focuses on women in jazz. And that was created in conjunction with the University of Cincinnati Conservatory of Music in their effort to increase women in jazz, not only in performing, but in education. So Jazz Alive is a big part of what I do in jazz in Cincinnati. And then my own production company, which is Liger Productions, is what I do independently in promoting and producing and presenting. I also sit on the University of Cincinnati Conservatory of Music Power Board, and I'm involved a lot in that board with all of the artistic mediums that are presented in the conservatory at the University of Cincinnati. But I have a special connection with the Jazz Studies Department and work with them a great deal, not only in presenting performances with them, but also coordinating master classes with different artists to come in. And so I get asked a lot, who can we bring in for a master class to our jazz studies program at CCM? And I try to coordinate that with the musicians that I know. And I've done several of those with Carl Allen, Christian McBride, Russell Malone, Ignacio Barrera, Steve Wilson, Tim Warfield, Terrell Stafford, several gentlemen that I know and ladies that I know, that if we can find an opportunity for them to do educational outreach when they come to Cincinnati, we work cooperatively, or I work cooperatively, or Jazz Alive works cooperatively with the educational institutions here to make that happen. I've done a multi-day residency with Northern Kentucky University through Jazz Alive with bassist Rufus Reed, one of the most fulfilling things that I have ever done. It was just an honor to have him here for that amount of time and working with students. And I am hoping, if Corona doesn't stop us, we'll be doing a similar multi-day residency with vocalist Renee Marie at Northern Kentucky University next year. That's a lot of what I am involved in. And some of the things that I have coming up is we're continuously trying to expand on our educational outreach, which everyone knows you've had to pivot what you do with your tools with educational outreach now that we're in the pandemic. One of the big things that Jazz Alive has done is created virtual content that we provide primarily for Cincinnati Public Schools, but it's available for everybody. We work with the Fine Arts Curriculum Manager for Cincinnati Public Schools to provide content for Cincinnati Public School TV. Once we create the content, we load it on YouTube, and then it's available for them to pull down and then broadcast on Cincinnati Public School TV. And we created 4 virtual content packages and they're based on artists that we wanted to focus on. And we did Johnny Hodges, Cannonball Adderley, Dizzy Gillespie, and Ella Fitzgerald. And if you go to the Jazz Alive YouTube channel, you'll see those, at least 2 of them out on the YouTube channel. The other 2 need to be uploaded. We want all schools to be able to reach our content and hopefully find something valuable and impactful in that content. I know the importance of educational outreach is that hopefully there's a student that sees the content and the light bulb goes off in their head about whether or not they want to learn to play an instrument, learn jazz, whether or not they want to listen and appreciate it. I hear a lot of kids say, jazz is what my grandparents listened to. But there's several levels of the genre that can be attractive to all ages. And so whenever I get a chance to be in front of students that maybe not have had any kind of exposure to jazz, I encourage them to listen because maybe they'll hear something that the light bulb will go off for them. I thank Gail for sending me some questions and some topics because I could talk about different things for a long time, but I want to stay focused on some of the things that she gave me. One of the things that I think is important about jazz, especially for African American communities, is to understand that jazz is our history. It is not only American history, it is history, part of the history of our culture as African Americans. We should embrace it for what it has given our culture. We should continue to preserve it and support it. I travel as much as possible to anywhere that I can hear good jazz. And a lot of musicians know me they might look up anywhere that they're playing and they see me in the audience. I'm like, what are you doing? Well, I go and travel to listen to jazz, not only because I want the appreciation and the experience, it gives me ideas about what are the possibilities of things or people that I can bring to Cincinnati. I'm always kind of dismayed when I go and hear someone and there's not a lot of African Americans in the audience. I hope that our community can continue to support this music that is part of our heritage and our history. I was lucky enough to have parents that understood the importance of the exposure of music and the exposure of jazz and the exposure to the arts. And I somehow think that needs to still be the focus in people's homes to their children. Even adults need exposure. And I hope that that will continue, not only for appreciation of the arts overall, but for appreciation of jazz. Sometimes what we see currently that is offered to us as entertainment may not be culture, may not be arts. And we need to also embrace the things in jazz that are culture and that are arts and that are history. And I hope that that will continue and that I can be a part of that in some way. I have a lot of friends that are musicians, and I can't think of an older musician that gave me experience or gave me advice that I listened to. But again, I will say Javon Jackson gave me some of the best advice. When I first met him, he was touring with the Elvin Jones Jazz Machine. And I went backstage to introduce myself to Mr. Jones. I had just started thinking, I just was thinking about promoting. And Javon asked me, I was the only woman of a group of men that were standing backstage. And he said, "Do you work in the industry? What are you here? Because you're the only woman." I said, "I'm thinking about becoming a promoter." And he sat and talked to me for several hours, again, about the good and bad and the ugly of promoting and being a woman and doing that, and also being an African American woman promoting jazz in the Midwest. It sometimes it's been a struggle, but I still get a lot of joy out of it. I had mentioned earlier trumpeter Mike Wade, who lives here in Cincinnati. I've known Mike for as long as I've been promoting. He was always encouraging to me about different things that I wanted to do. We're both Aquarians, and Aquarians are great for coming up with ideas. And so I would always bounce ideas off of him. He would bounce ideas off of me. And he always gave me a lot of encouragement about continuing to do what I wanted to do. My best friend is saxophonist Tim Warfield. Same way, he's always encouraging me to continue to do what I'm doing. When I get discouraged, he says, "We need you. We need you for jazz. Don't get discouraged. Keep on doing it." Another person who gives me that same message is Delphio Marcellus. Um, I've had him here in Cincinnati several different iterations, and um, he says the same thing. You know, you're a sister trying to keep the music going. We need you to hang in there even when you get tired. Take a break, get up, and come back. And another friend of mine is saxophonist Steve Wilson, and he always gives me that same type of encouragement too. So I appreciate that. And I always try to conduct the level of what I do in working not only with nonprofits, but for my own business, conduct the level of what I do at a high standard of integrity and credibility. And doing that means people know that they can trust me with what I do, and that they can know that I'm going to deliver as well as possible for what I can do for them if they come to Cincinnati. So if I would give advice to anybody that's interested in promoting or booking or managing people, always set a high level of standard in what you're doing when you execute working with those people and execute what you're doing, um, in either promoting or booking or presenting. If you do that and you have a high level of integrity about what you do, that gains you all the credibility that you need. And that's the business practice that you need to keep in place to always keep your credibility and integrity in check. Um, the other advice that I would give to musicians, especially, is take an opportunity to see the other side. Promoters, presenters, booking agents, managers, we all kind of do the behind the scene work to ensure that what you do on stage can happen. And I encourage every musician, whether or not they're starting out or they're a veteran, take an opportunity to learn what happens to make things happen. I tell people, I'm the person that makes stuff happen. I'm the person that makes it possible that everything is in place and ready to go so you can get on stage and do what you do. And if a musician understands that, they have a better appreciation of everything it takes to make an event or a show or a tour or anything like that happen. And that way you can see the whole scope of what it is for performing. And so I tell even students, if you want to shadow me when I'm doing a concert series, or if you want to come and volunteer and see the workings of what I'm doing, I have some students that They have volunteer hours for requirements for graduation, and I have them come and maybe shadow me for a couple of hours, and they can learn everything it takes to make an event happen, make a festival happen, or they can learn some of the critical things. And even if they, as they go on, if they go on to be artists, they can see how important it is for the right people to be in place to make things happen. So that is some encouragement that I would give um, to artists, young and old, or veterans. um, in dealing with the times that we're in now with the pandemic, one of the things that I know for sure, as human beings, we need to commune. We need to be able to gather. I think that is intrinsic to human nature. The ability to commune, to the ability to be around people, all in the appreciation of something that we both feel is valuable. And I think commune in the appreciation of the arts is something that gives us great joy and great energy as we live our lives and go about our day. Music is one of the oldest forms of commune. Music is one of the oldest forms of things that have brought people together. And in the midst of a pandemic, we in trying to stay in place so we can overcome this pandemic, it is very, very difficult to be able to commune in the enjoyment of the arts and the enjoyment of jazz. Um, I think whatever vehicles that we have available to still do that, like virtual programming, we should support that and we should continue to do that. And once we are able to commune in what is hopefully a quote unquote normal existence, normal environment, that the appreciation for jazz will be 10 times as much, that people will come out and support as much as they possibly can, and um, give a lot of appreciation for what has been missed when we're able to commune and appreciate jazz in a normal environment at festivals or at venues, or however you enjoy it in your community. I hope that once we can get around this curve, people will come out 10 times more and tenfold and support the art form. I know personally, I go to Chicago Jazz Festival, Detroit Jazz Festival every year. And even though there was virtual content that was available for both of those festivals, I missed the camaraderie. Sometimes you go to festivals and you only see people once a year at the festival that you go to, and you miss that feeling with the camaraderie of everybody that is there to enjoy the music that you enjoy. And hopefully we can get back to that, and in a safe way, possible. Um, One of the last things that I would like to say, just for musicians and everybody else who supports them, is learn your audience, learn your community, learn your audience. One of the things that I always try to impart to musicians is sometimes not everything works everywhere. And I'm in the Midwest in Ohio, and something that is more progressive along the lines of maybe like acid jazz or something like that might not work in my community. And so learn your audience, learn your community, learn what you present, where will it work? And if you have a repertoire that is expansive enough where you can do more contemporary as opposed to traditional, ask the promoter, ask the presenter, what do you think the audience will appreciate more? Can I do things that are more groove funk based with my repertoire? Do I need to stick with standards, more traditional things? If you have that in your library, you should ask the promoters or presenters what works for your community, what works for your audience. That's one of the reasons why I try to go and listen to people. I hear them, I may appreciate them, but it's always important for me to go and see their live show and hear what they do on stage. Then I can kind of get an idea of, will that work in my community? Will that work with my market, so to speak? And some people, I hear them, they're great, but I'm like, they might not. I might not be able to actually have a great show with them that minimizes the financial risk. I look for marquee value. If I put a name up on a marquee, does that mean people will come? But I also look for what's going to work in my community, and that differs from region to region. But I also ask artists to think about that too. Um, it's nothing wrong with, if you're going to a city on the East Coast, in the Southeast or the Southwest, asking the promoter, what do they think will work? And Ohio lays claim to the funk capital in Dayton, Ohio, which was the home of a lot of funk groups, a lot of soul groups in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I've had some musicians say to me, I'm a big fan of uh, Roger Troutman and Zapp. I'm a big fan of Ohio Players. Bootsy Collins is a native of Cincinnati, Ohio. And Christian McBride told me how much he's a fan of Bootsy Collins. And sometimes people will ask, can I do something along the lines with some music related to these bands? Yeah, people in Ohio would love that. And I'm actually glad that musicians, they may alter their repertoire to pay tribute to those bands and that music that has come from Ohio. And I just encourage all musicians to think about, when you go somewhere, what will work. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a large enough repertoire, it will work for you. I said that was going to be my last thing, but I have a few more minutes. I'm an accountant. I've been an accountant for 31 years. I've been a promoter for 21 years. I still work full-time as an accountant. One of the greatest things that I have been able to see as a crossover skill with what I do as a producer and a promoter and a presenter, and even with working with musicians when I did artist management and booking, is project management. A lot of things boil down to good project management. And because I have a financial background, I'm good at budgeting for projects. A lot of people come to me and ask me for that skill. I'm trying to do a CD. I need someone to help me put together a budget. I'm trying to do a CD release event. I need someone to help me put together a budget. Project management is key. Organization is key for what I do. Those are great skill sets to learn and to keep in your arsenal if you're a musician. And the reason why I say that for musicians is because you may have groups of people that help you with what you do. But at the end of the day, your career is yours. And if there's no one available to help you book or to organize or anything like that, you have to learn those skills yourself to be able to manage the path of your career if you don't have anyone available to you. Those are great skill sets to learn. If you have people available, that's great. But learn those things because your career is yours. I have about 3 seconds. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on Alternative venues for jazz talk today. Thank you.